Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Living Well podcast. Stephanie and I are here today to talk to you about gut health, specifically leaky gut, because we find this to be such an important topic in your health and a topic that, although a lot of people hear the term leaky gut, they don't necessarily understand what it means and how it affects your body. But before we dive into that, we want to talk about our 14-day liver detox, which we are in the heart of right now. And we are just so enjoying this group. We've added some fun new things with our sauna night and our yoga nidra night. And I just like so hyped up about the detox this time around.
Well, I think this time of year, everyone's trying to do something new for themselves and their health. And so it's exciting. We do 14 days. And I know 14 can seem like a long time, but like Marnie, you and I are already into the second week. It's gone by really fast. And it's just awesome having this community of support and the chat that we have, and people are sharing photos of what they're making. And then these community events that we've done, that we've added, like the yoga nidra the other night was amazing. It was with Betsy Weiner, who's been on our guest now 3 times. And then last night, the sauna event. So it was sauna and cold plunge, and it was this local Sauna Strong. And we had the Sauna Poppy, who's one of the owners. We dropped his episode just a few weeks ago. If you want to learn more about sauna and really the benefits of cold therapy. And I think most people in the group had not done the cold plunge before, and they did it, and they went in, and the tubs were outside, and the water was like 40 some degrees, and the air was probably mid to upper 20s. And they got in there for like 1-2 minutes, almost 3 minutes. And it was one of the participants actually commented, this was just for the detox, like how great this is to do it in community. And I never would do it by myself. Even if I had a sauna in my house, I wouldn't want to, necessarily be doing this by myself. So I think it just emphasizes one of the trends we talked about in the 2024 New Year trends, that doing activities that are good for your health, but in community and with the support of others who are also on a journey, not necessarily the same spot, but just on a journey to embrace, their true potential and feeling better this year. I think it just really supports
just
that
seeing,
trend.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to see the pride in everyone's faces, like they were proud of themselves. I was proud of them. You were proud of them. And I know how hard it is to get into that cold water. And so it was an awesome night.
It was.
And just thinking about our detox and the gut and how actually doing this detox can help you if you are having gut issues. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper today. And it's important to note that, the scientific and medical communities are not necessarily in agreement on the term leaky gut, and people that experience a lot of persistent digestive issues or related symptoms should consult with a healthcare professional. We are not doctors. We are sharing this information as education, and what we do in our own lives and what we've seen.
Think it's, Marnie, you and I have both been trained under functional medicine and naturopathic medicine. And so this term is very well used in that community, but not in, sort of the normal Western medical system. Not all those practitioners are necessarily, talking about leaky gut with their patients.
Now, that being said, I am a very firm believer that leaky gut is a real thing. And in fact, I can literally see it on people when they're walking around. You can tell when somebody has leaky gut.
100%.
So, that being said,
let's dive right in.
Go for it. So, Stephanie, why is the gut important?
Well, the gut is important because it's where 70-80% of your immune system resides, right? And you've got all this food passing through, and then you have toxins from the environment. It's also, I think, really important to know that 90% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So think about like your mood, and, a lot of people go through different phases of life with like depression and other things. How you feel could be related to your gut health. So it's not just like physical symptoms, but we need our gut
brain gut connection that you hear about.
Yes. And we need a healthy gut to be able to protect us from all of the environmental toxins and stress and other things in the world and foods that we're eating. And, a lot of times when we have leaky gut, the inflammation is a result of having leaky gut. And, inflammation can lead to a host of chronic diseases. So, but what does leaky gut mean?
So leaky gut is really, if you picture the intestine, it's the intestine permeability. So there's all these they're called, I believe, like gap junctions in the small intestine. And when they come apart, so if you picture like a wave, kind of, if you're on YouTube, you want them to be super tight. And when they come apart, there's space in between them. And then substances can pass through those spaces and go into your bloodstream. And that is officially leaky gut. That's not something that you want. You want a healthy gut where those gap junctions are very tight together so that all of the essential nutrients and all the stuff that you're putting in your body do not enter the bloodstream, but they go to where they're supposed to go.
And then what happens is our bodies can attack. That's when you hear like autoimmune conditions. They're these foreign particles that shouldn't be in our bloodstream, but because of the leaky gut, the little holes and little spaces for the food and particles to pass, that's when sometimes our body attacks, like we're trying to defend these foreign particles. And then lots of autoimmune conditions can happen. And it's all kind of the same thing. Like our body is trying to defend itself, but it can't. And these particles are entering in. And I think just thinking of, I had heard an analogy the other day, it may have been Mark Hyman, but just like if you had a coffee filter, you don't want the coffee beans or the grinds into your coffee. You just want the coffee to go through. And it's kind of similar with your gut lining.
And you may wonder, so how does one end up getting leaky gut? How does that happen in the body? Well, some of the ways that a person could get leaky gut would be, consuming a diet that is very high in processed foods and sugars and artificial ingredients. And also consuming alcohol is a big one.
I mean, it's a toxin at the end of the day. And yes, I like to drink, glasses of good, clean wine, but it is a toxin.
As one of our guests in the past has called it, perfectly packaged poison, which I can never get out of my head. But alcohol is a big factor in leaky gut that I think is often overlooked. Another item or thing is taking NSAIDs or medications, and prolonged use of them really can affect your gut health.
And I think, I remember back as a new parent with small kids, how many times did you go to the doctor and they had an ear infection or they had something that was wrong? And you're just as a parent, oh my gosh, I want to make sure they're okay. Or you want to make sure they're sleeping through the night and they're irritable, and you just give them antibiotics. Had I known, and my kids thankfully did not go on very many antibiotics at all, but that can impact their gut health as an adult. So you could have symptoms in your 30s and 40s that literally relate back to when you were a baby and all the antibiotics or other medicines you were on. And, there's a lot of people out there that especially athletes and people that are active that have a lot of pain because they're putting their bodies through a lot of physical activity and they're taking Tylenol and Advil. All that disrupts your gut.
Right.
In your microbiome a lot. So I would say,
think twice
before taking all those medicines. And yeah.
And in my opinion, if you're seeing a Western doctor that is happy to give you an antibiotic anytime you have a sniffle, you might want to consider changing doctors.
Absolutely. 100%. Or just be an advocate for yourself and you don't have to take it. I've been to many doctors. I was at a dentist once and having, I think it was a root canal or some procedure. And he was just start popping Advil as soon as you get out of here. And here's a prescription for an antibiotic. And I was I don't want this. And I did not take a single Aleve, Advil, any of those. And I came back and he's I have never had a patient that has declined the prescription and not taken one of those pharmaceuticals.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah. So stress can also cause leaky gut or be a factor in leaky gut. So it's really important if you're having chronic stress to try and use some of the tools that I know we've talked about on so many podcasts on trying to, calm your body down and your stress down. I would say, breath work and meditation and writing and living in the moment, all of those things are going to help keep your body calm, and staying out of the flight or fight stage.
Yes. And, you know, the other thing kind of going back to diet too is eating a lot of, I think there are people out there that are probably focused on food and cleaning up their diet. A lot of you guys out there, your listeners, but making sure that you're eating to the extent you can an organic diet and following the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15, which comes out from the Environmental Working Group. And I know we've talked about this before. We will link it up in the show notes. But even when we're eating fruits and vegetables, most foods are sprayed with glyphosate and other chemicals that are creating leaky gut. So glyphosate is actually one of the other factors that really does a lot of damage to your gut.
Do you want to say what glyphosate is in case somebody doesn't know?
Well, it's weed killer. It's being sprayed on your crops so that the farmers can grow the crops without having weeds and having to waste,
it's like Roundup
food.
and
Roundup, Monsanto, if you hear of him, that's the company that started it. And they are doing it for their own pocketbook. They are doing it for their own financial reasons. And it's literally making us sick. And if you think about it, we didn't have this a number of years ago when our grandparents were around, and we didn't have all this chronic disease that we do today. And even in other countries, they're much better about not allowing this stuff to be sprayed on their crops. So when you're in Europe and other areas of the world, but in the US, most crops, unless they're organic, are being sprayed with these harmful chemicals. And so to the extent that you can avoid them and at least avoid the Dirty Dozen. So the Dirty Dozen are the top 12 most contaminated fruits and vegetables that even when they're washed, still contain these harsh, awful chemicals that are causing us to be sick, causing inflammation, causing leaky gut. And so that would be like my biggest takeaway from all this is like looking at that list, buying frozen when you can. And we can get into some tips later, but it doesn't mean you have to spend tons of money. But think about it as like almost like a health insurance plan for you. Spending a little bit of more money now will save you lots of time and money down the road.
And I hear a lot of people say that organic is just a marketing gimmick. It's really not. Like, it's really not. The Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15 are foods that like I won't even eat something that's on the Dirty Dozen if it's out somewhere, because all I can think about in my mind is, there's chemicals all over that.
Well, I can too. And I still think about, we had Zach Bush on and we dropped his episode. It was March of 2023. And he talked about strawberries specifically, and even organic strawberries, unless you are growing them in your backyard or like you have a local farmer who don't even buy organic strawberries because there's still so much on there. And, a lot of times it's like, if you have a farm and you're organic, but then you have farms next to you and they're spraying a bunch of crops, there's that, infiltration that comes onto your farm. I mean, you can kind of go down a rabbit hole with all this.
Yes. And we don't want to make you feel crazy or like you can't eat anything. That's not the idea at all. It's really about awareness and you figuring out your comfort level with where you want to take this. We want to present the information that we know, and then you do you.
Yes, you do you. Absolutely.
And so, how do you know if you have leaky gut? Well, some of the symptoms, I guess, would be potentially constipation. Maybe you feel bloating. Some people have, their stomach sticks out a lot, and you can tell that it's not like necessarily fat.
Right. It's bloating. You're bloated.
It's like major bloat.
Yeah.
Diarrhea. You could have skin issues like acne or psoriasis or eczema. You could feel arthritic. There's so many things. You could have autoimmune conditions. So
a lot of allergies.
A lot of allergies.
A lot of people walk around with allergies thinking that they're seasonal allergies, and they very well may be, but that could be related to leaky gut. So instead of just popping like an allergy medicine, like a Benadryl or a Claritin or whatever it is that's out there, you have to get to the source of it. Because are you going to take that medicine for the rest of your life or your kids' lives? Right. And we're all about getting to the root cause so that you can really live, a better life and just feel better and not be so reliant on different medicines and things like that.
And knowing how connected the gut is to the brain, you want to have that healthy brain, and you want to have those good, happy serotonin and feelings and
Right.
all of that. And having a healthy gut and healing your gut is going to lead you to benefits in all areas of your life.
Yeah. And, I think other conditions that could be rooted in a leaky gut are like autoimmune conditions. If you have an autoimmune condition, I mean, I've heard many healthcare professionals say this time and time again, you likely have a leaky gut. And there's a lot of people out there with autoimmune conditions and even diabetes and weight gain and Alzheimer's. Like Marnie said, the connection between the gut and the brain is real. And even like, behavioral type disorders like ADD and even, people that are on the autism spectrum, there could be a correlation with your gut.
So what do we want to do? We want to try and heal our gut, right? We want to focus on the symptoms so that we can address them, get to the root cause, and hopefully clean up those gap junctions that we talked about so that you have a nice tight gut and nothing can get through into your bloodstream. And one of the things that I think we both recommend people do is food sensitivity testing, because that lab test, which Stephanie and I can do for you, really will tell you the foods that you have an IgG reaction to, which means that you may see symptoms up to like 3 days after eating the food. So we're not talking about a anaphylactic reaction where you need an EpiPen or anything like that, but we're talking about, the brain fog and some of these other symptoms that we've discussed that you may feel. You may not even realize it's tied to the food you ate. And so that's where lab testing can really help you identify what some of those food sensitivities are.
And I think the other thing that could really help is, like we talked about when we kicked off the show, the detox, because you're eliminating a lot of the inflammatory foods and foods that very often cause some sort of reaction or sensitivity in individuals, including nuts and seeds and eggs and very healthy foods. But by eliminating those for 7 days or 14 days, once you start to add them back, you may notice, oh, those symptoms that kind of went away for a week or two have now come back, and that will help you realize. So you could do an elimination diet on your own. It's hard because you really need to do a good job of tracking and eliminating the food, but that's another way for you to figure out if you have a sensitivity to a particular food.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then we mentioned like just trying to reduce the amount of like antibiotics and other drugs that you are taking, and just be mindful of any kind of over-the-counter medication. Like, think about, why do you need this? Think about like, how do you get to the root cause of what the ailment is, and focus on that versus just putting a Band-Aid on it, which is all that the medicine is doing for the most part. And sometimes it's needed. I'm not saying it's not, but if you're regularly taking these medicines, think about what the impact could be on your gut.
And then you can take certain supplements, and this is really, where we like to work with people one-on-one to determine, because there's no one size fits all for everybody, but a digestive enzyme could be helpful, and that can really help you break down your food and aid in the digestion of what you're eating. And a probiotic can be helpful as well. So again, or you can eat probiotic foods. And that helps you have a healthy gut bacteria. There's an ion product that Stephanie's going to talk about a little bit.
Yeah. And I can mention it. I also just want to say, just eating fruits and vegetables, like eating organic or clean 15 fruits and vegetables, and getting enough fiber. The average American is not getting enough fiber in their diet, and that's not going to move things along. So if you have toxins in your body, you want to be able to remove them. So 25 to 50 grams of fiber from fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. So don't fall prey to the, whole grain crackers that say that they're rich in fiber or enriched with fiber. No, you want real whole foods. And so eating as much of that as possible. And then, like we talked about, like the prebiotic rich foods are like the garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, Jerusalem artichokes, some of those, which are also very helpful to feed the good bacteria. And then avoiding the sugar, avoiding high fructose corn syrup, avoiding any processed sugar, because the bad bacteria in your gut, which is also helping to create the leaky gut, they love sugar. The good bacteria likes the wide variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, So focus on, you want to increase the good and remove the bad.
And if you can remove, if you have like, if your leaky gut, if it's intense, if you remove alcohol for 90 days, that's going to make a huge difference. And especially along with what Stephanie just mentioned with the removing the sugars and eating the fruits and the vegetables, you're going to see huge improvements in your leaky gut. Also managing your stress is huge, practicing the stress reducing techniques that we mentioned earlier, like meditation and deep breathing and yoga and mindfulness, and really trying to make time to implement that into your daily life. Because chronic stress really it impacts our entire body, but especially the gut. And like, if you ever hear the expression, like you have a gut feeling, which I like to use a lot because I listen to my gut all the time. When I'm feeling stress, I feel it in my gut. Like I can get nauseous. They're just, it's amazing how tied the gut is to everything that's going on in your body and how you're feeling.
Well, and you kind of the gut brain connection, normally you don't think about it in that way, but that's what I was thinking when you just said that. Like you get that like sick or nervous feeling in your gut, something's off, right? And it could be like a
Yeah.
decision that you're about to make, right? It doesn't have anything to do with necessarily like food or a physical ailment. And just so you guys know, we will link up some of these episodes we talked about. Like we have talked about stress reducing techniques, like Marnie mentioned so many times, and even like the alcohol and considering taking a break from that. We'll link all this up so you guys have these additional resources as reference because we didn't want to go through all those today. We wanted to keep it very focused on the gut.
And it's important to sleep. You want sleep is, we've talked about sleep again and again, but sleep is a big factor as well. And you just want to have that balanced lifestyle overall. We're looking for balance here. We're not looking for perfection, but trying to do your best in whatever that is for you in all these different areas is going to make a big difference in your overall health and well-being.
Absolutely. And it's all about the balance that's right for you and still enjoying yourself and feeling good. And so sometimes it's hard to get to that point of equilibrium where you're enjoying yourself and doing those fun social things, but you also recognize, but I feel better when I get a good night's sleep. And I feel better maybe when I don't drink as much alcohol and when I eat better foods. And so once you start to feel good most of the time, then it makes some of those lifestyle choices where maybe you're saying no to certain things. Doesn't become a detriment. It becomes like your conscious choice and you're doing it because this is how you want to feel. And then enjoy yourself and don't worry about it the other 10, 20% of the time, whatever that is for you. And I know we wanted to just hit on Ion a bit. So that's a product that Marnie and I both started using the last few months. And it's very unique. It's Intelligence of Nature is the name of the company. And it was founded by Zach Bush, who was on our show last year. And it's a natural soil derived product. It's liquid. And it's been scientifically proven to like counteract the effects of glyphosate, which is what we talked about earlier, and the gut lining. And it does actually strengthen on its own those tight junctions. So instead of taking a probiotic, this is like kind of the opposite. You're not infusing different probiotics and different strains to help diversify the microbiome in your gut. You're allowing your body to heal and do the work that we were designed and evolved to do on its own. So it's helping your gut restore and create those tight junctions. And there's been a lot of science out there and showing like the effects of taking what happens to your gut lining with the effects of glyphosate, and then what happens when you're taking Ion. And so it's a product that you can take multiple times a day. Children can take it like ages 3 and up. I've had my older son brought a big bottle off to college with him. Ideally, you're taking it 30 minutes before a meal because it really helps, especially if you're having a meal that maybe is higher in gluten or some other foods that, non-organic foods, et cetera. But you can really take it anytime throughout the day. You could put a couple of servings in a bottle of water and just sip it throughout the day. And then you just know you're getting it. So
But
that's a
keep in
product we will
mind
also
that
link up.
it even though it sounds amazing, which it is
Yeah.
an amazing product, it's not, a one and done product. You still want to make sure that you're, eating organic and not eating a lot of processed foods and sugars and all of those other things that we talked about in this episode to reduce that inflammation and leaky gut in the body.
I think the point is there's no silver bullet. And this needs
Mhm.
to be like a holistic approach to gut health. Like we talked about, like the sleep and the stress and those things, and even movement, that has nothing to do with food, right? But I think the problem is most of us have gotten to the point of having leaky gut because of food and the pharmaceuticals and antibiotics and some of those things. Those are probably two, and the glyphosate, those are probably the biggest drivers. But then in order to truly heal and seal that gut wall, you have to consider all these things. And I know, Marnie, you and I both have had our own, personal experiences with gut health. And I just know all the eczema and rashes and things that I dealt with. And I knew, like, if I go back and think about it, like my diet and my stress were awful at that time. And I didn't even know what gut health was, back
Mhm.
15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we've both cleaned up our guts over the years.
Yes.
And so we do offer lab testing, and we are really excited and wanting to help you if you want to be helped with leaky gut, or if you want to get your food sensitivities tested, or if you want to do a deeper test, which really tells you what is going on in your gut.
The organic
But
acids test.
yeah, we also offer that test, and we would love to have you reach out if you have any questions about either of those tests.
And you can schedule a free, a complimentary 15-minute consultation with one of us to talk about whether functional medicine lab testing would be a good fit for you. Like we kicked off the episode, doing the detox. We just finished the January detox, but we run one every quarter. So another one will be coming up in mid-April. We also have an option, which is in our show notes, where you can go at your own pace and purchase the detox, and you'll get all the materials, but it'll just be self-paced, like you will do it on your own, and you wouldn't have the support of the community and Marnie and I. So that's always an option.
But we're always here to answer questions.
Yes.
So have a great day.
Yeah. And we'd love to hear from you how this episode resonated with you. And of course, if you have questions, reach out.